Welcome back to the Tefilah Shir. It seems to me that Birkat Hamazon is very popular. Look how many people we have here. More than usual, although a couple of new faces, so that's good. But we seem to have got all our regulars in one go, which is very nice. Right, so Birkat Hamazon. That's what we're going to tackle today. Do me a favour, bring me a chumash for your stone.
Which chumash?
The blue art scroll chumash in the bookcase. Thank you. So, David Coleman wants to come in. Let him in. So, Birkat Hamazon is the unique bracha. Why is it unique?
Because it's a biblical commandment.
Because it's a biblical commandment. Correct. It is the only bracha which is it's not true actually. There is another one which is Dioraita. Birkat Kohanim. Correct. But we don't say that. Well, none of us do. Is Solly here? No, none of us say that. We are the recipients of it, but we don't say it. So thank you very much, Philip. Thank you. So it is a biblical commandment. It is a biblical commandment to make this bracha of Birkat Hamazon. And where do we find the source of that biblical commandment? Anybody know?
No.
Go on, say that again, slowly. Okay, well, thank you. Yeah, okay. So Barbara said Vasavata Ve'uberashta. Okay. And then we have to eat first, because Vasavata means you should be satisfied. Ve'achalta, and you shall eat. Vasavata, and you shall be satisfied. Uberachta, and you shall bless. The word benching, where does that come from? What language is that, benching?
Yiddish.
No,
German.
it's Yinglish. Okay, okay. Yiddish would be benching.
Yeah.
Okay, benching is Yinglish. And you think I'm joking? Have a look in Wikipedia on Birkat Hamazon, and it says there, Yinglish benching. It actually says Yinglish. It made me smile. Okay, so benching is from the Yiddish word benchen, which means to bless. We bench licht. Well, the ladies bench licht. Yeah, we bench Chanukah licht. Yeah, benching means to bless. So benching means to bless. This little book here is called a bencher, right? Because we bench out of it. And what's it called in Hebrew?
A birkon.
A birkon or a birchon, depending on your pronunciation. If Ruby was here, he would tell us exactly which was correct. Anyway, where does it come from? This ve'achalta v'savata uve'rachta? No. Where do we find it in the Torah? You told me it was a Torah commandment, so where is it in the Torah? Anyone?
Devarim.
Devarim, very good, Johnny. Which
I'm looking at my siddur.
Okay, it's from Devarim chapter 8, Parashat Akev, and it says like this. This might be a little bit familiar to you. At least the second bit will be. Eretz, Chita, Useora, V'gefen, Uteina, V'rimon. What's that?
Rimon is a grenade.
The species. Okay, Eretz, we're talking about a land. Chita, wheat. Seora, barley. Gefen, wine or grape. Yeah. Te'ina,
Date.
fig.
Yeah.
Rimon, pomegranate. Zait, shemen, olive oil, udvash. Honey, what kind of honey are we talking about? We're talking about bee honey, are we?
Yeah.
Talking about date honey. Okay, so those are the 7 species. Okay, wheat, barley, grape, fig, pomegranate, olive, and date, in that order. Why is the order important? What is relevance does it have? What order it was in?
Seasonal.
No.
That's what you play. That's what you levarech on.
Correct. Correct. Hannah says that's what you levarech on. Okay, because she gets mixed up with her English and her Hebrew. It's what you make bracha on. If you've got all those things on the table, and you like them all equally, and you're going to eat all of them, right? And they're all you're going to eat them in that order. The order that they're in the pasuk is the order that you should eat them. So if you've got something made out of wheat, then you should eat that first and make the bracha mazonot. And then you go through the 7 species in that pasuk. So that's the first pasuk. Eretz chita usiyara geventenu rimon eretz zayit shem nitvash. Eretz asher lo b'miskenut tochal ba lechem. What's that mean? Eretz, a land. Asher lo b'miskenut. What's a misken?
Like a nebuch. A nebuch.
Misken is a nebuch, yeah. Misken is the Hebrew for nebuch. Misfortune, yes. Lo b'miskenut. Not with misfortune, tochal ba lechem, will you eat bread in it? In other words, the food that you will get when you, this is talking about when you go into the land, the food that you will get will not be with misfortune. It will be the opposite of misfortune, good fortune. It'll be plentiful. Lo techsar kol bo. What's chasar mean?
Missing.
It's missing. Lo techsar. Nothing will be missing. Lo techsar kol ba. Nothing will be missing in the land. It's going to be a wonderful place. Eretz, a land, asher avaneha barzel, whose stones are made of iron. Ume harareha tachtzov nechoshet, and whose mountains you can mine copper. It's a great land, okay, because it's full of iron ore and copper. Next pasuk, ve'achalta, ve'savata, uve'rachta. You shall eat, and you shall be satisfied, and you shall bless whom? Et Adonai Elohecha, Hashem, your God. Why? No, not Hashem, say to. Al haaretz hatova asher natan lach. Does that sound familiar to you? Does that sound familiar to you? Right, it's part of benching. Right, it's part of benching. That pasuk on which the whole of Birkat Hamazon benching is based is actually in benching itself. It's quoting its own pasuk, if you like. So that is the biblical requirement to say Birkat Hamazon. Now, what happens if you would go somewhere and you get a rubbish meal? Right? Ve'achalta, and you eat.
Velo savata.
Velo savata. It was horrible. Or it was not very plentiful.
You
Right?
don't have to bench.
You do. I would say you still do.
Okay. Hands up those that say you have to bench. Hands up those that say you don't.
Depends if you've washed for it, Johnny, does it?
It all depends.
It all
He
depends.
reserves his judgment.
That's the best answer of call. The answer to every question
Does it
that
mend if
you is the correct answer is machloket. You're on a safe bet if you say that, machloket.
does it depend if you've benched, if you've washed for it? Sorry, Johnny.
No. You can wash in. You can
And I
wash
have the
in the hope that you're going to be savata, that you're going to be satisfied. So what? So the answer is actually you do need to bench. But those of you who said you don't need to bench are also correct, because when you bench, right? You don't bench without a bracha. However, you're not far off actually, Frank, because you do bench, but the benching becomes a d'Rabbanan. Okay. Once you have
That means
eaten.
you don't have to.
Ooh, Hannah, that's very brave of you. Hannah says you don't have to keep
I
d'Rabbanan.
agree with Hannah.
Right?
I agree with her. I'm a Sadducee.
But if you go
You
somewhere,
don't have to keep what, Johnny?
bench afterwards, it's not your house, it's going to look great.
Okay, so you do need to bench, but the point that I'm making is that there are parameters in the Torah. To be a deoraita, you have to eat and be satisfied.
ספק דאורייתא מחמירים, ספק דרבנן מקלים.
Okay,
That means
no,
if it's from the Torah, then you have to.
you have to do it.
But if it's the Rabbanan
But that's
and you got a query,
Okay, but
then you can go the easy way.
that's if it's a safek. Here I'm talking about there's no safek. You go for a meal and it's absolute.
Okay, so you don't have to.
Right, Alpi, the Torah, you don't have to bench because you're
No.
not savata. However, the Rabbanan
You
say
do because
you do
of-
because of it's the Rabbanan. Yes, Warren.
You don't need bread in the first place.
Okay, so let's talk about, before we actually get into benching, let's talk about the parameters. This is where it's from. Okay, this is, I've said it's from Parshas Akev. We've said these things. Now, the key word is v'savata, and you shall be satisfied. Now, there is an opinion that says a person who eats a certain amount, and we'll come about in a minute what the amount is, a certain amount of bread or an amount of food which is made from any of the 5 grains, not the 7 species, but the 5 grains. What are the 5 grains?
Wheat, barley, corn,
spelt. No, the corn didn't exist in that. Rye, correct. Yeah. Wheat, barley, oats, spelt, and rye. Okay. Corn is a good one because we're coming into Pesach time soon. We'll be talking kitnius in a couple of weeks' time. We'll be getting into the kitnius business. Corn did not exist at the time of when benching was made. We're going to talk about when that was in a minute. And so corn is not one of the 5 grains. So anything that is made out of the 5 grains, and you eat a certain amount of it, a fixed amount, you are meant to be satisfied. Right? Now, the fact that you're a greedy guts and it doesn't satisfy you, that's a very subjective thing, right? I might have a small appetite and somebody else might have a big appetite. So I might be satisfied with, a small amount of food, and the guzzler next to me says, I'm not satisfied. So I have a situation there where I'm benching Dioraisa and he's benching Drabonav. No, you can't have that. So what the rabbi said was, there is a fixed amount of food, which if you eat that is considered to be the amount which you should be satisfied with. Now, whether it's satisfying or not is a different question, but that is what they have decided. So what is that fixed amount?
Kazayas.
Okay. The answer to the question is?
Kazayas.
No.
No, it's
No.
not.
The answer is?
It's 2 kazait.
Okay, we've got a bet kabetza, kazait, 2 kazaitim. What's the answer? I just told you the answer to every question. Machloket. Machloket. Okay, there's a difference of opinion. There are those that say a kazait. How much is a kazait?
Kazait is as big as a potato. In Europe, they didn't know what a kazait was. So they thought it was
One at a time, Hillary.
They say if you eat, I think it's more than 3 crackers, then you have to.
Okay, so
Yeah.
a kazait is let's talk about the first volume that people talk about, a kazait.
It's about 20 something.
Okay, so Philip is not entirely wrong when he said it's the size of a potato, because a kazait is actually the size of an olive. That's what it means. Okay, kazait, like an olive. Now, if you have a look at I'm not going to go into this in great detail because I'm going to go into it in great detail before Pesach when we get to the kazait of matzah that you have to eat. If you go into all the different meforshim of what a kazait is, you end up with the size. Some people, if you take the Chazon Ish, you've probably heard of the Chazon Ish. Well, the Chazon Ish took the most machmir view of sizes of things. So if anybody ever tells you, oh, that's a Chazon Ish Shir, right? That means that's a big amount. So the Chazon Ish's kazayit would make the olive the size of a football, right? Because it's done on volume. It's done on volume, which is why Hillary said 3 crackers. Okay, now it depends how big your crackers are, but it's done on volume. It's not done on size. So you take an olive, an average olive. Now that's not so easy either because there are different brands of olive, aren't there? There's those nice big dobbers that you get in what do you call it, in Pulitzer, right? Those big fat ones, and then you get the tiny little schmerel ones that we get in our cans in the cupboard. So which one is it? I don't know. That the Surah is one. I think there's an olive called the Surah olive, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, so you've got to know what olive you're talking about. But you take an olive. Let's take an average size olive, and you work out the volume of that olive. It's not the size or the weight. It's the volume of an olive. And then you get, let's talk about crackers or
With or
matzah.
without the
Isn't
pin?
it a cheek ball?
No, that's liquids.
Oh.
That's liquids.
So, John, what do you mean, I'm sorry, what do you mean the volume of them? What do you
Okay,
mean?
so
With or without the
imagine
pin?
you've got an olive, right? And you hollow it out, and you just had the very, very outer skin, the tiniest little, thinnest layer of skin, the amount of volume inside that, right? Imagine a ping pong ball, right? Look, you know what the volume of a ping pong ball is, what you could get inside that. IR cubed, is it? I don't know. I did know it one time. Anyway, it's the volume of the olive. Now, how do you measure volume in terms of a cracker or bread? Well, you can't really, because bread is full of air, isn't it? And you scrunch it up, you can get a lot more scrunched up bread inside than you think. So it's not quite so straightforward. So there are various calculations which you've done, and it works out that most of the Meforshim say that the volume of a kazayit is around about, transferred into weight, is about 30 grams. Now, if you're talking about a piece of bread, if you take a standard sliced loaf that we're all used to, right? A quarter of a piece of that would be
30 grams.
about a third of that. Sorry, not a third. About a quarter, not quarter, third would be about a kazayit. Okay, because it's all scrunched up. Now, the problem is that first of all, not everybody's agreed what an olive looks like, because the Chazanish thinks they look like footballs. And why did that happen, by the way? Why did that all, just very briefly?
Because they didn't know that they
Correct.
never saw one.
Remember, we had the discussion a few months ago about a tzvi that was being, that were the European Meforshim said was a deer,
And
when
was a
actually it was a
gazelle.
gazelle.
Yeah.
Same with a nesher, which they said was an eagle and actually was a vulture. Same thing with olives. They didn't know what an olive was. In Northern Europe, where the climate was not conducive, there were no olive trees. So you couldn't look it up on Wikipedia or get out the Encyclopedia Britannica. They didn't know what an olive looked like.
No.
So they had to work it out
But didn't
from
some
the
of this
Gemara.
come back from the
Yeah.
Gemara?
Yeah.
Yeah, and there they
Yeah,
did know.
so they did.
Yeah.
They worked it out from the Gemara, various things, and they ended up having to take the most machmir position on each thing, because there was one opinion that said an olive is a third of an egg, because they knew what an egg was like, right? And another one that said it was half an egg. So we don't know. So we better go with the most machmir, because we don't know. So then they said, well, what kind of egg are we talking? We're talking about an ostrich egg? Are we talking about a quail egg? Okay. And then so the Meforshim then in the Middle Ages didn't know any of these things. So they all worked out on these things, had to take the most machmir position. And so then there was an idea, said, well, back in the day, the olives were much bigger, right? They were the size of footballs or the size of, potatoes. No, they weren't. If anything, what's going to be happening? If anything,
They were smaller.
with genetic engineering,
Yeah.
we're going to be larger now, aren't they? Because
Yeah.
that's how we've done it. And by the way, just to prove it all, they have found 3,000-year-old olive pits in various
Excavations.
archaeological, thank you.
Okay.
Is that the word I want? Yeah.
Excavations.
Archaeological sites.
Yeah.
And guess what? Same size as ours, right? So olives weren't the size of footballs back in the day, but because they didn't know what olives looked like, they had to take the most machmir position. But an olive is an olive, okay?
Hang on.
So
Can anybody smell burning?
No, it's outside, it's outside.
It is
It's
outside.
Outside?
Yeah,
so
Thank you.
it's okay.
if you eat at least a kazayit, according to most opinions, there is an opinion that says it has to be a kibetza, which is the size of an egg, which is bigger. And according to some of those opinions, like the Chazanish, the eggs were the size of ostrich eggs back in the day, but they weren't. Okay, as we all know, for those of you who are a little bit older than 21, the eggs we get today are bigger than the eggs we had when we were little, because again, this is how it goes. So the fact is that the Chachamim fixed kazayit or kabet. So let's go with kazayit, because that's the most common psak. A kazayit of bread, let's say bread, any of the 5 grains, you have to bench deoraita, because that is what is the amount which is considered to be vesavata. Okay, so whether you're satisfied or not actually doesn't really matter, because if you've eaten a kazayat of bread. Now, the other thing is, and this is, I think Hillary was alluding to this a little bit before, what if you eat a full meal and you are completely satisfied? You know, you have steak and chips and you know, fruit salad, the whole kabang, but you don't eat anything of the 5 grains. Technically,
You have to
You don't
bench.
have to bench.
technically, you don't have to bench
You don't have to bench.
because you haven't eaten anything of the 5 grains. However, you should bench, and you should bench. It should be DRI. You should make it so that you have to bench, because it isn't right.
The full benching.
Well, that machloket, because and that's because it's a machloket.
Why can't you just say, but when the first road?
Yeah.
You can,
Yeah.
and you should,
Which is what you do.
but it's not enough.
Why?
Because ve'achalta, v'savata, uveirachta, and uveirachta means birkat hamazon, which we're going to start going through now. So therefore, you will find people do not want to put themselves in that position where they have eaten a full meal without having to bench. It's not right, inverted commas. So what do? They make sure that they have some grain-based food, so that they have to bench. In the same way, one second, Hannah, in the same way as I suspect that most of the guys here have got tzitzit on, right? You don't have to have it on now, by the way, because it's night time, but I guess you've still got them on, right? You don't have to wear tzitzit. Who says you have to wear tzitzit?
But we're used to it.
You only wear tzitzit
If you
if
keep
you
you
wear
warm.
a 4-cornered garment. So why do we wear tzitzit? Because we deliberately put a 4-cornered garment on so that we have to wear tzitzit. Okay, so somebody who does not wear tzitzit, I used to think when I was a kid, what a shaigat, you know, he didn't wear a tzitzit. Yeah, I used to think that was the most terrible thing, because in school I got in trouble. You know, if you turned up in school without your tzitzit, you were in real big trouble. But actually, you've done nothing wrong, as long as you haven't got another 4-cornered garment on. We put a 4-cornered garment on in order that we have to do the mitzvah, in order that we can do the mitzvah. We want to do the mitzvah. So it's the same with this benching business, right? We eat that, if we got this full meal which doesn't involve bread, you shouldn't really. You should make yourself have to bench by eating a kazayat of bread. Okay? Those are.
Do you have to wash before you bench, Johnny, or no?
Okay, and that's my machronim. We'll come to that later on.
No, you have to wash allotilati time, I mean.
You mean before you bench?
Yes. No, before you have the meal.
Before you
have to have wash
Okay,
your
I
hands.
understand the question. What Johnny's question is, what if you forget to wash? Right? You're a naughty boy, you forget to wash, but you do eat bread, and
You don't touch it with your hands.
or but you did all of those things, right? And you're a bal tshuva in the middle of the meal, right? And you want to know what to do at the end of the meal, and you didn't wash. That's what you're asking, isn't it, Johnny?
Yes, yes.
The answer is, of course you bench. One thing has got nothing to do with the other, right? Just because you failed to do one particular mitzvah doesn't mean that you're patur from a different mitzvah, okay? It just so happens that it's a bookend thing, but if you missed one, so you missed it too late. You know,
When I was
nothing you can do about it.
working, for example, I took food with, I couldn't stop, there's nowhere to stop and wash.
Right.
but
So
today,
the
I
way
had food that I took with.
the way to do that, if you can't wash, if in no way, is you try and avoid touching the bread with your hands, because what's the washing about? The washing is about to wash off the tumah before you eat bread. Okay, so Birkat Hamazon is a mitzvah. What have we done so far? Mitzvah d'oraita. It's a mitzvah from the Torah, and it falls on somebody who has eaten and is satisfied. The Rabbanan have decided that being satisfied means eating something of the 5 grains of at least a kazayit, and then you are obliged to say these brachot. Okay? Any questions so far on that bit? Yes, Hannah, go on.
Said everybody.
Go on, I'll take a chance.
You got to deal with mine shalosh too. I mean, today in Israel, the bakeries, I'm talking about big bakeries, in Jerusalem, make rolls that are mazonot rolls so that people don't have to bench.
Okay.
Right, but what I
I'm-
was gonna
I'm
say,
not
how
get-
much of mezonot?
Right, okay.
Before it
I'm not going to
becomes-
get into Mazonot right now. I will get into Mazonot, but when we've finished Birkat Hamazon, I'll go into Me'en
But
Shalosh.
taking the thing, well, I'm not going into nine challenge, but I'm saying that I always learned, and I only learned here, I didn't grow up religious, okay? That if you don't, first of all, if you don't eat bread, you don't have to, and you don't have to bench. You can eat a whole meal, and if you don't eat bread, you don't have to bench.
Technically, that's correct. That's what we've
Yeah.
said.
And also, if you eat you can declare a seudah on mezonot, which means I can take a mezonot roll, which I don't have to bench on, and say, somebody just got married and it's a seudah mitzvah or a bar mitzvah, and I'm taking this, mezonot for the seudah, and then I have to bench.
Okay, so that's what I'm not getting into now because we'll come to it afterwards. Whether you
But
bench
I
on
don't.
whether you bench on Maz or not is probably a whole shiur on its own, and we'll get there. It may not be
That's what I
today.
said,
It may not today. It may not be for a few weeks, but we'll get there.
Kelly, I wonder why this bracha of Vakal of the Savota isn't the first bracha in benching then.
Good question. Good question. Right, let's start then.
Oh,
Get
also
in-
one
oh,
other
wait a
thing.
minute. We can't get into the first bracha, can we?
one other thing. Also, the kids were taught when they were little here, that a sandwich with 2 pieces of bread is what you have to bench on, or half a pita. The question was always, why half a pita and 2 slices of bread?
It's to do with volume.
Yeah,
It's to do with
But
volume. Depends how big the
they
bread
were,
is.
a rule of thumb, measurements as to what you
Okay,
had to
so
bench on.
it depends on the size of the pieces of bread and how much you eat. Right, I was going to say let's start and go into the first bracha of benching, but we can't, can we? Shir hamaalot or al naharot bavel. Hands up, those of you who say shir hamaalot on Shabbat.
No, don't say. I chose to say Eitot HaMizrach.
Okay, well
Because
then
it's very
we don't.
But they also have a.
They have their own things. We might get onto them later, but in passing. Okay,
when I
hands
said
up.
that, I used
So,
to-
back just for everybody listening on the recording and on Zoom, everybody in the room raised their hands. They say Shir hamaalot on Shabbat, except for Hannah, who decided that she's an Easterner. Right? What about Al Naharot Bavel? Hands up those that say Al Naharot Bavel during the week. Okay, nobody raised their hands, and Hillary said, "What's that?"
And what about Hineni Muchan?
When I see it, I
By the waters of Babylon. Okay.
Can't tell him at all.
So before you start benching, okay, right,
Oh, no.
okay.
Yeah.
So nobody says it, right? Okay, so we need to talk about it because nobody says it because really, perhaps we should. So it's in the book, yeah. So why do we say?
It's not in actually.
It's not in here.
It's not in. It's not.
It's in here.
Well, that's Minhag Anglia. Maybe they.
It's not in the JNF.
Not in the JNF. It doesn't count, right? Okay. Let me ask the question: why on Shabbat do we say Shir hamaalot?
Because it's Shabbat.
Sacrifice or something like that.
Something to do with sacrifices? Jeff says no.
No.
It's a Shabbat.
What's about that? Because it's Shabbat.
You're supposed
We were all
to say
dreaming of-
Al hamaalot, and you're supposed on during the week, which I used to do when I said this, and Shir hamaalot on Shabbat. Because there's always there's in many cases it's a difference between prayers on Shabbat and prayers on
Yeah.
Okay, but
during
why?
the week. And it's
You're
so that
absolutely
you,
right.
We were
so
dreaming
that
of the
you don't leave the table without divrei Torah.
No, because we were dreaming of the return to Zion.
Okay.
That's not different.
Right.
It is.
Didn't they sing it in the temple, Johnny?
It's so that you don't just eat.
Okay. All right.
Jill's got the answer.
Jill, come on. What's the answer?
They sang it in the temple.
Testament is omitted.
Right. So the answer to the question, why do you say Shir hamaalot on
They sang
Shabbat?
it in the temple.
No, the answer is because you can't say Al Naharot Bavel
Why?
because it's too miserable. Al Naharot Bavel by the rivers of Babylon.
Yashavnu
Right.
v'gam bachinu.
Okay, have you got Al Naharot Bavel there? Please read out the English translation, nice and loud, of Al Naharot Bavel.
By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat, and
Where-
also when we remembered Zion, and also wept when we remembered Zion. On the willows within it, we hung our lyres. There our captors requested words of songs from us, with our lyres playing joyous music. Sing for us from Zion's song. How can we sing the song of Hashem upon the alien soil?
Right, stop, that's enough, right? You heard enough. Are you satisfied?
Just have another breakdown.
That is a miserable Tehillim, right?
Yes.
You can't sing that on Shabbat.
Have a damn nervous
Right,
breakdown.
you can't sing that on Shabbat. It's too miserable. So Chachamim said, right, you can't sing Al Naharot Bavel. But what's the idea? The idea of Al Naharot Bavel, that Tehillim, is about remembering that we are in Galut and that we want to come back to Eretz Yisrael. That's what Al Naharot Bavel is about. And that is why you're meant to say that before you bench. What is benching? We'll come to it eventually. And that is benching is thanking HaKadosh Baruch Hu for the great food and what? The great land. But we weren't in land. We were in Bavel. And we were crying. We were sitting by the rivers of Babylon, Boniem, yeah, right? and we were crying. You can't sing that miserable thing on Shabbat. It's not allowed. So the Chachamim instead said, okay, we need to find something which is less miserable, but still talks about the return to Zion. Now, please read out the translation of Shir hamaalot.
A song of ascent. When Hashem will return the captivity of Zion, we will be like dreamers. Then our mouth will be filled with laughter and
Thank
our
you, that's
tongue
enough,
with
right?
glad song.
We will return. Hashem will return us to Shivat Zion, right? At Shivat Zion, we'll return to Zion. We'll be like dreamers. Hayinu kecholmim. We'll be like dreamers. There's all sorts of joy in there, Rina and all that stuff, right? It's a joyous thing, but it's the same idea that we are remembering coming back to Zion. One second, Frank. I just want to finish this thought process before I lose it. So you now understand why we should say Al Naharot Bavel during the week and Shir hamaalot on Shabbat. The answer to the question is why we say Shir hamaalot on Shabbat is because we can't say Al Naharot Bavel. But I would ask you, if we don't say Al Naharot Bavel during the week, have we a right to say Shir hamaalot in the weekday? I mean, on Shabbat.
Should we, being in Israel, say it?
Now I was just thinking, that was the thought process. Is that what you were going to ask? That was the thought process I wanted to just finish. Maybe.
What did you say?
Maybe now is the time that we should not be saying Shir hamaalot.
For those that are living here.
Those who are living here. Except, I think the answer would be, that would be rather, what's the word? Rather inward looking, because we still have just about more than half of the Jews in the world who are still in Galut, and we should be singing for their return to Shivat Zion. So, but I take the point, and I thought about the same thing myself. You could certainly make out a good argument to say that Al Naharot Bavel and Shir hamaalot should be redundant now. But before 1 second,
Whilst the hostages are there, we should sing it, maybe.
Yes, that's a fair comment. Now let's just have a look and see, when did the introduction of Al Naharot Bavel and Shir hamaalot, when was that introduced to the beginning of benching? I'm not asked you when benching came in yet.
After the fall of the first temple.
But I'll tell you the answer to that second question in a minute. Let's assume we've got benching. When did they add Al Naharot Bavel and Shir hamaalot, and who did it?
After the fall of the first temple, and it might have been somebody like Mordechai.
After the fall of the first temple, you're about 2,000 years behind.
Would it be Ezra?
No.
How can that be? What do you mean behind? Well, it was for 2,000 years later?
Yes, 2,000
Only 500 years ago?
Yes, correct.
So why were they talking about the rivers of Babylon?
Very good question. So the earliest mention of reciting Al Naharot Bavel before...
Does in the Quran one, she'ein b'shabbatot v'yamim tovim she'ein mit'ablim b'hem ala churban.
Okay, so that's exactly
what does that
mean. You don't mourn about the destruction on Shabbat. which is what Al Naharot Bavel is talking about, which is why we do Shir hamaalot. Okay, but when was it introduced? It was introduced in the 16th century.
My gosh.
Yeah, much later than anybody thought. It was introduced by a chap you might have heard of called Reb Moshe Cordovero.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and it wasn't intended to recall the destruction. Correct.
But the destruction of the
And then
first temple.
later, that was Al Naharot Bavel. Later on, Reb Moshe ben Machir, who was a little bit later on, suggested that on Shabbat and festivals, when expressions of sorrow are avoided, that Shir hamaalot should be substituted for Al Naharot Bavel. So it's a very late addition to benching. One second, Frank wanted to say something first.
I think in our Tefilah there are times where Yerushalayim and Sion are interchangeable. We say one, we're thinking of the other. So when we're looking here at Shir hamaalot, are we actually conceivably talking about the justification now is we're talking still about Yerushalayim, because further on in the benching, we're still saying Rachem, and we're also saying Uvnei
Yerushalayim. Yeah.
Therefore,
that's a fair comment. That's a fair comment. Shivat Sion. I mean, it's the same argument, isn't it? Are we still in Galut?
Yeah.
Well, are we in Galut in Eretz Israel? You know, have we had the Geula Shlema? Is this Reshit Tzmichat Geula Seinu? Yeah, fair comment. And you're right. Sion often refers to Yerushalayim itself as opposed to the whole of Israel. Yes, Philip.
But why, if this was only written 500 years ago, did he only talk about Al Naharot Bavel? Which is actually because only the first temple.
So what do you want him to write? He's probably.
He would. I think it would have been better, be more logical for him. As Frank says, to use the word Jerusalem instead Al Naharot Bavel.
He didn't make it up. It's Tehillim. He brought it from Tehillim. Tehillim was written.
Okay, all right.
So it's not that he wrote a prayer. It's not that Moshe Cordovero wrote the prayer Al Naharot Bavel. It's Tehillim 137. Okay. So
David wrote that. No? King David wrote that?
Probably not, because King David was not around. King David was 500 years before the destruction, before they went to Bavel. So although it's in Tehillim, it will be one of the Tehillim that he did not write. It was written in the style of King David. Right. You know, when you get one of these
Ghostwriter.
Yeah, ghostwriter, or you get one of the Dutch masters, which it turns out was written by one of his, painted by one of his pupils and not by him. So although it's part of Tehillim, it wasn't written by King David. It couldn't have been, because King David lived 500 years or more.
That was 3,000 years ago.
Yeah. Yes.
I've got a red herring again.
You
have to bench on a red herring.
I was just going to say it would have been appropriate to read another 2 lines.
Go
on. From Shir hamaalot. Then they will declare among the nations, Hashem has done greatly with these. Hashem has done greatly with us. We were gladdened, oh Hashem. Return our. I think that's relevant also for today, for us.
Of course, it's relevant. Yeah. I mean, Shir hamaalot is relevant for all times, because we're thanking Kodesh Baruch Hu for what he did for them, and for, as you say, La'asot imanu. He's done to us as well. So so we've talked now about the introduction, Al Naharot Bavel, which is an introduction which is very much really like at a chuppah. What do we do at a chuppah? Break a glass. Why? Everyone shouts, Mazel Tov! Commemorating the destruction of the temple. Why do people shout Mazel Tov at that particular? Oh, because it's the end of the ceremony. All right, fair enough.
Because he's fallen in.
It's a bit incongruous. I always find it a bit incongruous. I mean, I do it as well, of course.
Some everybody will say don't do it.
Yeah, I find it a little incongruous. The reason that people do it, of course, is because they don't know. Most people don't know why you break a glass. Everybody here does, but
I do. I don't say Mazel Tov.
And what else do we say?
I say yes.
We say Imesh Kachech Yerushalayim.
Yeah.
Right? We say the Chatan and sometimes the Kala as well says Imesh Kachech.
If you forget.
What, Imesh Kachech? Is it? Might have crept into Minhag Anglia recently, but I think it's probably quite old. I'll find that out for you. Okay, so it's a fairly late edition, Al Naharot Bavel and Shir hamaalot. We understand now Why we say Al Naharot Bavel? To commemorate the Churban in the same way as in our houses. We have a little bit of bare plaster there. If you live in Israel, you've got a lot of bare plaster probably in your house. Zeichel Churban, right? We break the glass. Zeichel Churban, Imeshkachech, Zeichel Churban. We do lots of things, Zeichel Churban, to remember the destruction of the temple. And Al Naharot Bavel is exactly that. Shir hamaalot is the Shabbosdika version of Al Naharot Bavel. Okay, that's great. Now then, we've got another bit as well before we actually get to benching. Yes, Warren.
The first Shabbos after we made Aliyah, I was asked to lead the benching. And as I got onto Tehilat Hashem, everyone shouted from all sides. You don't say that in Israel.
Yeah, okay. That's exactly what I was coming on to next. Very good. So we then we've said Shir hamaalot, and then if you are used to the JNF bencher there, which Paul's got.
One of the earlier ones didn't have it, and the later ones did.
Really interesting. You have Tehilat Hashem, you have 4 psukim, right? Yeah. Are you familiar with this, Hannah? Not being a Brit? Okay, it's a very Ashkenaz minhag. Okay, the Sfardim don't do it. They do something else, of course. They add on a whole bunch of stuff. They say Ein Kelokenu before they even start with benching. By the time they get to benching, they're no longer Savata. They're ready for another meal, right? But we have Tehilat Hashem, it's a minhag Ashkenaz, and it's when I say a pure minhag Ashkenaz, I mean it's a minhag from the real Ashkenaz. What is Ashkenaz? Germany. Ashkenaz is the biblical name, or the Gemara name, the Talmudic name for Germany. Okay, so the minhag of adding Tehilat Hashem originated in Northern Europe. I didn't tell you. I told you when Al Naharot Bavel and Shir hamaalot came in, and I told you that it was at Moshe Cordovera, but I didn't tell you where. That was from Sfat. They were all in Sfat.
Is that where he's buried, Rabbi Cordova?
Could be. Don't know. I'm not a grave hopper. I'm not particularly well up on where people are buried.
They say they are.
Yeah. So that the Al Naharot Bavel and Shir hamaalot was introduced by the Tzfat Kabbalists. The other end of the spectrum of of the Tzfat Kabbalists were the Yekkers, right? The northern European Ashkenazim, and it was they who introduced the 4 verses. Now, there is an urban myth which has grown up and that is why this urban myth is the reason that Warren got screamed at when he started to say Tehilat the first week he was here, having made Aliyah, because there was an urban myth that grew up around Tehilat that said the reason that Tehilat Hashem was added was to counteract the Zionist theme of Shir hamaalot. What is Shir hamaalot? It's a Zionist theme, isn't it? It's talking about Et Shivat Zion. You can't get any more Zionist than that, right? So when you're talking about the return to Zion, right, the anti-Zionists added in Tehilat Hashem to dilute this whole Zionist thing and to concentrate on the whole thing that was Hashem. If you look at the translation of Tehilat Hashem, please, Paul, read it out for us.
My mouth shall speak the praise of God, and all creatures shall bless his holy name forever and all time. You will bless God now and forever. Hallelujah. Thank the Lord, for he is good. His loving kindness is forever. Who can tell of the Lord's mighty acts and make all his praise be heard? Okay, so how many times have we mentioned God in that 4 psukim? Loads of times, right? It's all about God. What is it not about? Israel. It's not about Zion. So this urban myth grew up that it was put in by the anti-Zionists to dilute the Zionist message of Shir hamaalot. It's rubbish, because Shir hamaalot was known for at least 200 years before the introduction of modern Zionism. Okay, so that is why they all jumped on you, because
I haven't said it since.
No, we don't say it here, but it's not. We don't say it here not because it's an anti-Zionist anthem. Okay, so you may well have heard that that is the case. It's not. It's rubbish. That was just something that somebody made up, and it's sort of, you know, it's.
Is it purely a European Ashkenazi custom today, or in the States or Australia? Are they still saying
those communities which are based on Northern Europeans will still say it. South Africa will probably still say it because they were based. They're based on Australia, probably. England certainly. Minhag Anglia is based on the Minhag of Frankfurt.
It's not in my art scroll, Johnny. Funny enough.
Not in your art scroll. No.
It's art scroll, because it's not in mine either.
I wonder if it's in art scroll Ashkenaz. Yes, yeah. Okay. So it's in art scroll Ashkenaz, Johnny.
Oh, okay.
Interesting. So that's good. So it's in Ashkenaz. There we go. There's a fairly good proof for you that it's a Minhag Ashkenaz. So very good. We've made real progress. We've got as far as we're not got to benching yet because we've done.
I don't know whether it's relevant or not, but the Shir hamaalot, the 15 of them, were said on the steps of the Beit HaMikdash.
Yeah. On
a daily basis.
Yeah.
So maybe that's got some relevance to why it's here.
Okay, it certainly adds to the. It adds to why this one, because it talks about Shivat Zion. But yeah, I mean, it talks about Shivat Zion, so it's that one. You could certainly add in that it's one of the Shirei hamaalot, which was said in the temple, and therefore it reminds us of the temple as well. Yes, I think that's a fair point. So we've done well. We've got through Naharot Bavel.
What's that one? This extra line here before Rabbeinu Varech.
We've got
that one before.
Hineni Muchan. Okay, we'll come to Hineni Muchan as well. Okay, you thought we were going to go through benching today, didn't you? You should have known better. Should have known better that we wouldn't get.
I thought we were going to do Shir Shalayom. I thought we were going to do the Shir Shalayom.
That was last week, Johnny. You missed it.
I didn't miss it. We didn't do them all. We did the Yom Rishon if I'm lucky.
No, we did the concept of it. Yeah, we did the concept.
Okay. Johnny, do you know in your research when we started singing this universal songs, there's the same tune all over the world for Shir hamaalot and benching.
I'm going to give that homework to Frank.
There's lots of different tunes. Lots of different tunes.
Lots of different tunes, but I know which tune you mean. You mean
that was just the road class.
Well, he never wrote it. I think it might be Lewandowski.
What?
Wrote it. He never wrote it. Rosenblatt never wrote it.
Who wrote it then?
I think it might.
Okay, Frank is going to do some research. He's going to tell us who wrote it, when it was first. Right, Frank, I want to know who wrote it, when it was written, and why it's become so widespread. Okay, so we have spoken about Al Naharot Bavel. We've spoken about Shir hamaalot. We've spoken about Tehilat. We've still not got to benching because I was about to go on to the Zimmun, right? The Zimmun, Rabotai Nevarech, but.
You were interrupted
I've
by
been slowed down in my incredibly fast pace that we go by Leslie, who has pointed out that in this Birkat, there is another statement before we even get after Shir hamaalot, before we get to Rabotai Nevarech. Hineni Muchan u'mezuman. Hineni Muchan u'mezuman. Hineni Muchan u'mezuman. Hineni Muchan u'mezuman. Right, what does that mean? Hineni, behold, Muchan, I am prepared, u'mezuman, and I am invited, lekayem, to fulfill mitzvat aseh, the positive commandment, shel Birkat Hamazon, of benching, shene'emar, as it says in the pasuk, and it quotes our pasuk, ve'achalta, ve'savarta, u've'rachta, et Adonai Elohecha, al haaretz, hatova asher natan.
We don't say
the Sephardim say Hineni Muchan before they do any mitzvah, right? The Sephardim say Hineni Muchan u'mezuman l'kayim mitzvah to say shel whatever it is, shel Sfiras ha'omer, right?
Yeah,
right. Sfiras ha'omer. We sing that one, right? When Hineni Muchan u'mezuman, and it's a very Sephardi thing. So they say
Hineni before putting on tefillin as
well.
They do, yes. Were you taught that as a kid? No, neither was I. Do you say it now?
No,
I do, but it's in my siddur, right? But
no, hearing times.
If you look in your, probably not in the Minhag Anglia Siddurim, but look in the Rinat Yisrael, you'll see that before you say that put on your talit. There's a Hineni Muchan for that. There's a Hineni Muchan for tefillin. There's a Hineni Muchan before lighting candles on Friday night. You say that, Barbara? But there is one, right? There's a Hineni. All it means, Leslie, is it's a preamble, and it's a very good thing. I like it, and I'll tell you why I like it. I like it because it's almost like you're stopping and you're saying, right, I am now about to perform a mitzvah of a Kodesh Baruch Hu. And I'm getting myself into the right mind frame. There's a guy that here, Aryeh Shawat, a very good guy. Whenever he gets an aliyah for his, if he gets an aliyah for his yortzeit, he says, Ani olet l'Torah le'aliyat neshamat avi mori. And he says, before he says, Baruch Hu et Hashem Barach, he says out loud, I'm coming up to do this aliyah in the honor of my father, my mother, whatever it is. I think that's a really nice thing. And I think the Hineni Muchan, personally, I think the Hineni Muchan Mezumah is a good thing to do because it slows you down. It makes you think about what you're meant to be doing. And the idea of saying Shir hamaalot, and then you're about to start the Zimmun. You're about to start the Zimmun. And you stop and you say, Hineni Muchan Mezumah. I am now prepared and if you like, getting myself ready to do this mitzvah taseh, a positive commandment, min Torah, and then you quote the pasuk, why you're doing the mitzvah taseh. You do it for lulav as well. Personally, I don't do it for lulav, but okay, that's interesting. You do and I don't, and I do for this and you do. But really, I mean, if you were the Sephardim, they do the Hineni Muchaning all day long, right? Which is actually a good thing. It's a very good thing. So that's why we've got Hineni Muchan. Okay, so let's just go and talk a little bit now. We won't finish it, but let's talk about the Zimmun. What does the word Zimmun mean? What is a hazmana?
An invitation.
Preparation.
Well, not quite preparation. Preparation will be hachana. Hazmana is an invitation.
Yeah.
Invitation, a mental, yes.
Invitation. So the Zimmun, which is the correct way, when you say, have we got a Mezumah? That's not correct grammar. If Ruby was here, he'd have a fit, right? What is Mezuman? Mezuman is the passive form. It means we are readied. Okay, Mezuman, readied.
People don't say that, do they?
No, we say, have we got a Mezuman? Right, what does that mean?
Here we are ready and invited.
When you hear somebody say, have you got a Mezuman? Have we got three people?
Yeah.
And what does it mean? Because three people constitutes a quorum for
benching.
For making the benching together. They're doing it together. Benching is an individual thing.
No, it would be the base din. You need three for a base din.
Exactly. That's
you need three for a base din, but that's not why we do it. It's three because you're inviting people to join you. Okay, join you. You're inviting three is the number which constitutes a Zimmun. It constitutes the legal amount that you can, the minimum legal amount that you can have in order to invite one another to bench. Okay, because to bench together is better than benching on your own. Why? Because all the tefillot, as it were, come together. That's why we come from we daven with a minyan. Because the source of the three. What's the source of the Zimmun 3 in the Gemara? It's in the Gemara Brachos. If I'm not mistaken, it's 48a. We were going to get to it, but we won't get to it today.
Something to do with if you're round a table and you're eating and you're talking, one person is
very
important.
Good. Pirkei Avot talks about that talks about two people,
and then three people.
And then three people is It's probably. I think it's probably the other way around. I think that is probably as a result of the Zimmun. But we'll have a look in the Gemara next week. I think it's Brachot 48a. Could be mistaken on the page. So we've got this three, and so we then say if you've got three people there, you can then invite one of the persons who is the leader will invite the others basically to join him in blessing a Kodesh Baruch Hu. I may have told you this story before. It's a dead funny story. My father was when I was a little boy, we used to go to this. There was this kosher restaurant would be giving it a would be giving it a sort of a grand name. This dumpy place, yeah, in Blackpool, right? In Blackpool, right? And it was a kosher boarding house, and you know we used to go to Blackpool for the day, to the beach, our local beach, and then we'd go to this place to eat. So we were sat there eating, and then imagine this boarding house, a bit like Fawlty Towers, right? You've got tables all around, and we're eating, and then this fellow on the next table leans over to my father and he says, "Have you benched?" Right? And my dad says, "Mind your own business." Of course, he wanted him to join in with the woman. My dad didn't realise what, and he said, "Mind your own business whether I've benched or not." Oh,
That raises the question as to whether or not the three people have all eaten and are going to.
Well, yes,
there's an issue sometimes of inviting a third person that hasn't even eaten.
Yeah, because again, it's a bit like wearing the tzitzit idea. You don't have to bench with a Zimmun with three people, but you get the extra sort of level of it, and so therefore you try and put yourself in that position. So, like wearing the tzitzit, you don't have to wear tzitzit, but you put yourself in the position of having to wear tzitzit by putting on a four-cornered garment.
Okay, so we're in here. Sorry, we're in here eating. There's two of us, and there's someone inside there that's been reading. You say, "Come in, make up a Zimmun for us."
Well, they'd have to eat something.
I was going to say, have they got to?
Yeah.
And then they're also obligated to their bench.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, they have to be obligated to bench. That's
Johnny,
right.
isn't it bread that they have to eat?
Well, there's an opinion that says you can join in a Zimmun if you've eaten mazonot. There is an opinion, but correct. You're meant to have eaten bread so that you are what? You've got to be obligated to bench.
Yeah.
Can't be benching if you've not eaten anything and you bench. What's that? Bracha levatala. You can't do it. So you've got to be in a position where you are obligated to bench. So if we just spend the last minute or so just translating the Zimmun so we know what we're talking about, and then we'll carry on next time. So the leader says, Rabotai, Nevarech. Rabotai, my masters. He's being polite, right? He's being polite. My masters, gentlemen, Rabotai, gentlemen, Nevarech. Let us bless. Or if you are doing it in Yiddish, Rabotai, Melvellen Benchen.
But our scroll says that. Our scroll says that, Johnny.
You've got such an English
Rabotai, Melvellen Benchen. Okay, so we'll stick with Rabotai Nevarech.
Our scroll says Melvellen Benchen.
Melvellen Benchen, yeah, which means Mir Vellen Benchen means let us bench. Okay, let us bless. And so what do you reply? Yehi Shem Hashem Mevorach Me'atav. What does that mean? Yehi Shem Hashem. Let the name of Hashem be Mevorach, blessed, Me'ata, from now,
forever.
Forever. Yeah. May Hashem's name be blessed forever. So if I say to you, gentlemen, let us bless, and you say, let the name of Hashem be blessed forever, you've replied to me, yeah? You're blessed. And I repeat, Yehi Shem Hashem Mevorach Me'ata V'adolam. Yes, you're right, guys. May the name of Hashem be blessed forever. And then I will say, Birshut,
with the permission of
Meranan,
my teachers,
my master, my teachers, V'Rabanan,
and my
V'Rabotai, and everybody else, yeah. Nevarech, let us bless. Miss out the Elokeinu unless you've got a minion. If you've got a minion, you say Elokeinu. She'achalnu mishalo. What does that mean?
That we ate of his.
That we have eaten.
Present to us.
No, we have eaten mishalo. From what is his. In other words, we've eaten of Hashem's food.
Yeah.
We're blessing. So, Nevarech, let us bless. Share that. Achalnu, we have eaten mishalov from his. Let us bless the fact that we have eaten from the food of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We are recognizing right at the beginning of benching in the Zimmun, we are recognizing that the food that we have eaten has come from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Right? What do the Goyim say for their grace after meals?
After
And what about,
Or
we
before mail, before, what do they say?
May the Lord-
We're about to receive.
For what we're about to receive. make
Our
it-
Father which is in heaven.
Right, so where does that, so they say, let us be
Hallowed be
thankful.
thy
We're
name.
thanking after we've eaten.
Avinu Shebashamayim.
Why? We want to know if we've been Savata or not. They're thanking me before they even eaten anything, Schmerels. Right? So, Rabbi Sai,
No, because we are making the bracha of
we make a
bread
bracha.
first.
Yeah, I'm being facetious. Okay. Nevarech she'achanu shelo. Let us bless because we've eaten of this. And what's the answer to that?
Uvtuvach hayinu.
You will answer back. Baruch, blessed is he she'achanu mishalo, that we've eaten of his. Uvetuvo,
Uvtuvach.
and
He's good.
through
From his goodness.
his tuv,
Yeah.
through his goodness, chayinu.
We live.
We are
We
living.
live. Yeah.
So we're acknowledging that everything comes from Hashem before we even start the first Baruch. Okay, we've done Naharot Babel. We've cried that we've got a korban. We've Tehilat Hashem. We've recognized that everything comes from God.
Slowly we're cheering up.
With Hineni Muchan, we've got ourselves in the mood, and we've invited everybody around to join us in giving thanks that the food that we've eaten has come from HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that everything that we have in our lives, uvetuvo chayinu, and from His goodness is what we live.
Yeah.
And that's before we even start. And we'll leave it there because
Hang
we're
on.
out of time.
Just finish the last line of that. Baruch Hu Baruch Shema.
Okay, blessed is He and blessed is His name.
Just if you've got three people, I've seen it said that you should only say it if there's a minion.
No, you should say that if you're not on your own. If it's a Zimmun, you say Baruch Hu Baruch Shema. Why? I don't know. I have to look that up.
Because somewhere I saw that you would only say that if there was a minion rather than.
No, it's the other way around. A Yachid doesn't say it. He's what it says that. Yachid Eino Omer. A single person now on his own doesn't say it, which means
We wouldn't say any of it anyway, so it doesn't.
no. But Baruch Hu Baruch Shema is not connected to the Zimmun. You might think it is, but it isn't. It's not part of the Zimmun.
So if there were two people, you would say.
There were two people. You wouldn't say Baruch Hu Baruch Shema either because you're both individuals.
No, but you would say.
You wouldn't say the Zimmun. There's two people.
But what you said.
Baruch Hu Baruch Shema. No, you wouldn't. No, only if there's a Zimmun.
No.
Okay. Any questions on Zoom?
no, thank you very much.
Okay, Laila Tov, everyone. Next week there will be no Shiur because I will be in Australia, and the week after I will still be in
You
Australia,
can fly us out. We'll do the share.
and the week after that I may be back.